Today, we are breaking down a really explosive investigation, one that takes a hard look at a news channel and asks a pretty shocking question. The report is called Iran International Anatomy of a Media Weapon.
I mean, just think about that for a second. Can a news channel actually be a weapon?
And look, this isn't just some hypothetical question. The detailed investigation we're digging into today makes exactly that claim, and it's a big one. All right, let's get right into the heart of it. The report's core argument is that this isn't just media, it's a weapon in disguise. The investigation really doesn't pull any punches. It claims that Iran International isn't a news outlet in the way you or I might think of one. Instead, it argues it's a very sophisticated information warfare campaign. And its alleged goal? To literally fracture Iranian society from the inside. Now, to build this case, the report lays out a specific framework. It even coins a term for it: informational treason. And according to them, this means an outlet is systematically trying to break up the country along ethnic lines, making up casualty numbers to try and get other countries to intervene, giving airtime to designated terrorist groups, and even coordinating its messaging with hostile intelligence agencies. So you have to ask, right? Who would pay for something like this? Well, the report says it followed the money, and the trail it claims to have found leads right to Saudi Arabia.
Okay, so the investigation digs into the corporate structure, and it traces ownership of the network to a company called Volant Media. The report alleges that this company has deep connections to Saudi nationals and some pretty powerful Saudi media giants.
And the numbers we're talking about here are just staggering. The report, citing sources close to Mohammed bin Salman, alleges a budget of $250 million. It claims that money was funneled from the Saudi court itself through an offshore company. A source quoted in The Guardian, which this report cites, really puts it bluntly. They said, "You can have a bigger picture of how these guys are trying to change the world by buying media with money coming from the court." So the alleged motive seems pretty clear. But the money is just one part of this whole story. The investigation then goes into what it calls a consistent pattern of collaboration, claiming the network gives a platform to violent, separatist groups.
And to make this point, the report zooms in on one very specific, very tragic day, September 22nd, 2018. That's when a terrorist attack on a military parade in Avaz, Iran, killed 25 people, and that included civilians.
And here's the key piece of evidence the report presents. It says that just a few hours after that deadly attack, Iran International put the spokesman for the group that claimed responsibility on the air live for an interview. Just let that sink in for a second. Giving a platform to the voice of a group that had just carried out a massacre. The investigation is clear that this wasn't just a one-time thing. It alleges there's a pattern of giving airtime to other groups designated as terrorist organizations, like the MEK, the Kamala Organization, and Jaish al-Ad. In effect, handing them a megaphone to broadcast their message to millions. So, according to the report, the really crucial point isn't just about who gets a platform, but about how the information itself is supposedly being twisted. And this brings us to what the report calls the disinformation playbook. Now, the authors of this report claimed they went through a ton of material. We're talking over 2,500 videos and 1,500 images. And what they say they found was a campaign of, in their words, systematic disinformation. Let's break down one major example the report calls a big lie. First, the network allegedly reported this huge false number, 12,000 deaths in just 2 days, based on a number seen on a corpse cover. Here's the catch. That number was actually the total burial permits for the entire year. After that false number went viral, the network, according to the report, quietly walked it back, saying they had no evidence, but never actually admitting the original claim was wrong. And that's not all. The report lists other alleged tactics used to create this sense of chaos, taking the same protest footage and labeling it as different cities, dubbing sounds of violence over old, totally unrelated videos, and even pushing fake calls to protests that actually came from terrorist-affiliated sources. So why? Why do all of this? Well, according to this investigation, all of these tactics are serving one big strategic goal, something the report calls the balkanization blueprint. And this is really the investigation's final, and you could argue, its most serious claim. It says the ultimate goal here isn't just changing the government, but the actual balkanization of Iran. Basically, breaking the country apart into smaller states, all based on ethnic lines. And how would they supposedly push this idea? The report says you just have to listen to the language they use. For instance, instead of saying the province of Khuzestan, they'd consistently call it Arab Ahvaz, or refer to Kurdish majority areas simply as Kurdistan. The report argues this kind of wording is a deliberate choice designed to make people identify with their ethnic group over their national identity. So let's just sum up what the report concludes are the main goals here. 1. Break apart Iranian national unity. 2. Invent stories of atrocities to give other countries a reason to intervene. 3. Openly call for military strikes. And 4. Get the rest of the world ready for the idea of Iran breaking into pieces.
In its final assessment, the investigation lays it all out. It concludes that Iran International is a textbook case of 21st century information warfare, and that what it's allegedly doing actually meets the historical definition of treason. And all of this leaves us with the same question we started with, a massive question that goes way beyond just one TV channel or one country. In this day and age, where do we draw the line between journalism and information warfare?